Hi. I still don't got an intro idea. I honestly don't got one. Anyway, this is the second chapter of Bad. Okay, lovely. This is how this is gonna go, isn't it? Anyway, this is the second chapter of Black Cats Are Bad Luck and So Are You, Kid by Holly. I actually used the correct numbers this time. I didn't use the Tumblr ones. I used the AO3 ones. Um, I think I explained this already. So, let's get on to the story. Azuku wandered the house, looking for anything, but his teacher's home was devastatingly clean. There wasn't even dust for him to wipe his name into. The only real mess he found were three cat toys scattered in the hallway into the back area of the apartment, and that was it. Though it did mean there was proof that there was another cat here. Hazuku sighed and flopped onto the floor. He watched the wall for a while, tail flicking, listening to his teacher's work on trying to find him in the living room, just behind him. Did you see this camera? From the store across the forest? Yeah, I have. I haven't seen much. A dog running out was the most I saw. What about this one, closer to the fight? Yeah, it just shows him flying into the forest. Zuko groaned. Hopefully this will wear out soon. It was getting tiring. He stood and walked back into the living room. His English teacher and homeroom teacher were sitting together, two laptops and many papers around them, going through camera footage, witness reports, criminal history, everything. Zuko felt bad for the two, worrying about him so much, even though he was right there. And he was also felt frustrated. He could tell them who he was. He walked over and sat at the feet of his English teacher, pawing at the man's leg and meowing. Meow, meow. The man looked down at him and smiled, albeit nervously. Show? Mr. Ozawa looked down at the cat and smiled fondly. He sighed and leaned on the blonde a bit more. He's just wanting attention. Mr. Yamada looked at the other disbelievingly and raised an eyebrow. Ozawa grinned and leaned a hand down at Izuku, and taunting him closer. Izuku sighed and took the bait, walking over to the hand and sitting by it, only to be picked up by said hand and brought into his English teacher's lap. Both him and his teacher stiffened quickly, and Ozawa pet Izuku's head. The raven-haired laughed at the other's nervousness and nudged him. You deal with sushi just fine. What's with you? The blonde looked at the other and shrugged tensely. He's new. I'm scared he's gonna bite me or pee on me. Zuko contemplated it for a moment, but sighed and simply glared at the man, who in a turn squeaked and leaned back on the couch more. His teacher let out a gruff laugh and picked Zuko up, depositing him in his lap. All right, not gonna hurt you. Izuku sighed and nodded, but he wasn't caught by the other two, as an alarm went off on the voice hero's phone, spooking the three of them. The blonde reached over and grabbed the phone, turning the alarm off. That's an hour and a half. Time for bed. His teacher sighed and looked at the laptop more. Izuku watched his face turned more sad and worried. The boy meowed softly at the man and immediately looked down to the small thing. He smiled and patted his head, sighing. Guess I can't just do this all night. Gotta get some rest so I can do everything tomorrow. That's right. Come on. The blonde stood and offered the eraser hero a hand to stand up with. The man took it and carried Izuku back to the other room, where Izuku hadn't gone. The door had been locked, but now as his teacher opened the door, he heard a new voice. It sounded a bit like him. Oh, humans! You're finally coming to bed. I hope you know I'm displeased with how long you've been gone, and that you left me in here. Izuku immediately went on edge and hid into his teacher's arms more. The man chuckled and held onto Izuku closer, letting the small creature do as he needed. Izuku heard the other beast stop and heard the door close. The other animal spoke again. Humans, what is that? Izuku stiffened at being noticed and felt his teacher laugh softly below him. The man spoke again, leaning down with one hand, leaving Izuku's back. Hey, Sushi. This is our newest addition. Did you forget to name him? He felt the man holding him grumble and nervously shuffle. Hush, I'll figure something out. His English teacher laughed, and Izuku heard the bed creak, and his English teacher grunt. He assumed the man sat down on the bed, but refused to put his face away from his homeroom teacher's arm. The man below him spoke again, patting Izuku's back as he did so. Hazel. Hazel? Yeah, he's got really green eyes, and came out of a bush. They name him after a bush or something. No. I mean, if you're happy, okay then. Fuck yeah. Izuku almost passed out after hearing his teacher bicker like a married couple, but hearing his own teacher, who yelled at Bakugo for language cursing, curse himself? Izuku wanted to combust right then and there. He heard the bed creak again, and felt his other teacher walk over to where his homeroom teacher held Izuku. And before Izuku knew it, the blonde was pressing into the raven-haired man. Izuku Rista glanced up and quickly panicked. When he said his teachers were arguing like a married couple, he didn't think that it was for a reason. He thought that they were maybe good friends or something. They had been an extra bedroom when he was exploring the apartment. But there was a ring on the finger holding Azawa Sensei's face, and one hanging from a chain around his homeroom teacher's neck. That made him think otherwise. But mainly the fact they were passionately kissing at the moment, like one of those long kisses you may see on the Hallmark Channel. Izuku jumped off his teacher's arms and landed face first on the floor. He sat there dazed for a moment before sitting up and shaking his head off. When his ears stopped ringing, he heard his English teacher laughing his ass off. He looked up and saw the man holding onto his homeroom teacher, head on the other shoulder, while the raven-haired just watched Izuku with worry. Izuku shook himself off and sighed. He made quite the fool of himself, but this felt like a violation of privacy, and Izuku felt like he needed to get away from the two. It did make the two stop, so Izuku guessed that you win some, you lose some. But then a heavy thump was heard behind Izuku, and a rather deep meow. Hello, new cat. Izuku also guessed he lost a lot. Izuku gulped and slowly turned around. Behind him was a large and fluffy tabby cat with a white belly that went up to his muzzle. He had blue eyes and glared at the small intruder. Izuku's tail bushes up a little, and he nervously spoke back to the larger creature. Hello? The bigger cat huffed and walked over to Izuku, who got as low to the ground as possible and fluffed up as much as he could. The bigger cat sniffed at Izuku and prodded at him. You're very small. How old are you? He gulped and took a breath. 16 years? The larger cat blinked at him and sighed. Never mind. I don't understand alley cat talk anyway. Just stay away from my bed and my spot on the human bed, okay? Izuku nodded hurriedly, and the cat grumbled and jumped back onto the bed. Izuku flopped over and laid onto his side, breathing heavily. He heard one of his teachers, Mr. Yamada, his mind supplied, coo and speak softly to the other. Poor thing! I didn't think sushi would scare the poor tot that much. Better than them fighting. I guess so. Though Sushi is not really a fighter. Say that to his face, you bastard. He is a grand warrior. Izuku felt the floor below him creak as someone stepped closer to him. Before someone picked him up, he whimpered quietly at the movement and looked at his homeroom teacher unhappily. The man just smiled and walked the small cat over to the bed, settling him down on the pillow. The other cat was on the other side and watched Izuku carefully. The blond man got into the bed and laid his head down, where there was the least amount of cat. His homeroom teacher yawning and doing the same. The man pet Izuku's fur, and the boy yawned himself. Meow. The other cat watched the small one for a while before going to sleep, along with his English teacher, who snored a bit. He watched them both for about an hour before trying to go to sleep. Izuku felt exhausted. He couldn't quite go to sleep, so he flipped around and looked at his other teacher behind him. The man was staring at the ceiling, seemingly lost in thought. His face looked worried, angry, and sad. Izuku scooched a bit closer to the man's face and curled up against his ear. The man jumped a little, but pet the small creature's side. He whispered softly to the cat. Can't sleep either, huh? Izuku nodded, but his teacher hadn't turned his head to the boy, which was frustrating, but I'm worried and scared. One of my students just disappeared. Sorry, not the best day for your adoption, huh? Izuku stiffened and watched the man. He was still watching the ceiling, with that far-off look on his face. Izuku laid a little closer to the man's head, and he pet his back a little more. You're a good cat, Hazel. Both Izuku and his teacher slowly drifted off after that, the world fading out to the blonde snoring, the raven hairs breathing, and Izuku's purrs. Izuku woke the next morning to a phone camera shutter going off, and the soft snickers over him. He grumbled and leaned into his pillow more. Except pillows weren't this hard, and things weren't this fluffy. He blinked his eyes open again, and remembered the day before, sighing. He was still a cat, though he was kinda glad. It would have been weird to wake up curled right next to his teacher's face as a human. He sat up and stretched, someone behind him awing in disappointment. Aw. He looked over at the shores to see his other teacher holding his phone at them like he was gonna take a picture, which he probably did. Izuku huffed and glared at the man, who chuckled nervously and put his phone away. The man stood from the bed and walked out of the room, the larger cat following behind. Izuku turned to watch his other teacher, who was still asleep. Izuku didn't want to leave the man, or have another encounter with the large cat, so he curled back up next to his teacher and closed his eyes. A while later he heard Mr. Yamada come into the room again, gently calling him. Hazel! Hazel kitty kitty, come here. Izuku didn't move from his spot, though. He was kinda hungry, but he was also extremely comfortable. His homeroom teacher was like a furnace somehow, and to Izuku's cat body, it was the best thing ever. And heard the man enter the room and walk over to them. Izuku grumpily opened his eyes and looked at the offending man, who laughed softly at Izuku's disgruntled face. Come on, kiddo, you gotta eat. Izuku huffed, but didn't move still. He didn't want to deal with the other cat, and he was comfortable. Two very good reasons to not move. But he also needed to find a way to let his teachers know who he was. So he sighed and stood, trying to not disturb his resting teacher, and walked over to the blonde. The man chuckled and picked Izuku up, still holding him at his arm's length. Izuku glared at him. While it didn't hurt to be held under the armpits like this, it was uncomfortable. The man chuckled nervously and apologized, quickly walking into the kitchen and setting him down in front of a bowl full of wet food. Izuku sighed and ate a little bit of it. The other cat walked over and looked at him and his food. You gonna finish that? Izuku looked at him and back at his food before pushing it towards the other cat with his paw. No, I'm alright. Finish it up. The larger cat licked his lip and knelt down to the food, chowing down on it. Your loss. Izuku sighed and walked away. Mr. Yamada was cooking something and unaware of the two, so Izuku explored more. It was the same as last night, and the laptops were put away, so Izuku couldn't access them. He huffed and walked back to the bedroom, where his home teacher was still sleeping. To be fair, it was Saturday, and God knows Izuku wouldn't get up unless he had to before 9, and it was only 8:12, according to the electric clock on the man's nightstand. Izuku explored the room. Like the rest of the house, it was pretty clean. Nothing he could use. He grumbled and dug around their closet for anything. But again, it was clean. After a few minutes, the light suddenly came on and spooked Izuku, making him run deeper into the closet. He heard his homeroom teacher groan and the other chuckle lightly. Come on, Shota. You gotta get up. Eri is coming today. He heard his teacher groan and the bed creak before the other man spoke groggily. Yeah, I know. The blonde laughed a bit and the door shut. Izuku heard the man sigh. He quietly crept over to the closet to look at his teacher, and he saw the man rubbing his face. The man sniffled and took a deep breath before standing and walking out of the room. His eyes were really red. A part of his quirk, or was he crying? Izuku didn't have time to think about it when he heard his teacher speak up from the kitchen. Where's Hazel? Izuku jumped out of the closet and walked out of the room, meowing at the two for attention. Meow, meow, meow. Here I am, Azawa-sensei. The man looked down and smiled at him, picking him up and holding him. Mr. Yamada cooed at the display and began plaguing food. He's a strange cat. Yeah, I know. He was cuddling with you most of the night, I think. Really? The man holding him looked down at the blonde, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, I woke up and he was sleeping right by your head. I have a picture. It's so cute. If Nemuri gets her hands on it, I'll kill you. But it's too cute not to share, show. You already sent it, didn't you? I may have already sent it. Mr. Ozawa then took a deep breath, set Izuku down, and tackled his other teacher, who yelped and wriggled around like crazy, quickly settling the food he was preparing on the counter. Show! The man didn't respond, though, and began to tickle the other. The man began to laugh hysterically and gasp for breath. I yield! I yield! His teacher huffed and picked the man up, heaving him over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. You better. I hope you know there will be consequences. Izuku left before he heard the smack of his teacher slapping the other's ass. Around 10 minutes later, a knock on the door was heard. Izuku has hidden himself in the bathroom, contemplating life after the display in the kitchen. He heard a male voice and a small female voice greeting her before the door shut. Chairs scraping in the kitchen and voices were heard. So, Eri, we have a surprise for you. Mr. Ozawa spoke softly to her. Izuku was slightly envious. but he knew the man cared for them the same as he did Ari. The girl spoke up. What kind of surprise? Well, we have a new addition to the house. A new cat. His name is Hazel, and we got him yesterday, so be gentle. Okay, Mr. Zashi, sir. Izuku walked into the kitchen at that moment, meowing to make himself known. Meow, meow. Hello, Ari. The girl looked down at him and gasped happily. Before the two adults to scold her, she slid off the chair and walked over to him. Izuku knew she wouldn't hurt him, so she let him pick her up. It was a little uncomfortable, but he dealt with it. Kitty, hello, Hazel. Eri practically shouted in his ear. Zuko kind of understood why animals hated toddlers now, but he liked Eri, so he began to purr and bumped his head against her instinctually. The girl giggled, and Izuku looked. I've wrapped the two teachers. The blonde had his mouth agape and wide-eyed look, stopped in time as he was reaching out for Eri. The other just looked shocked. Izuku grinned as best as a cat could. They're starting to get him, not a normal cat. His homeroom teacher just sighed and shrugged before speaking. Okay, Eri, put him down. Let's finish your food and you can play with him before lessons, okay? The girl nodded and set Izuku down, pat his head, and walked back to the table, jumping into the chair and eating her food. Izuku had the urge to fix his fur, so he bent down to lick it, and it was somehow relaxing and disgusting at the same time. He shook himself off once he was done and wandered to the living room. He jumped onto the couch and laid there for a while. Before Eri, his English teacher, walked into the room. They both sat down on the floor around the coffee table with a pen and some books. Hazuku straightened and watched what they were doing. Yamada pulled out a book and opened it. It was a writing book for kids to work on their kanji. Oh, fuck yeah, Hazuku thought. He jumped off the couch and onto the coffee table, but was gently set back down onto the ground by the blonde man. Sorry, Hazel. No cats on the table while we're working. Zuko glared at the man. He could have spelled out his name. The man nervously patted the cat's head and went back to instructing Eri. After a few minutes, Mr. Ozawa came out, except he was in full hero gear. Mr. Yamada told Eri to keep working and stood, walking over to the man and quietly talking to him. Izuku took his chance and jumped onto the table. Eri looked at him and quietly shushed and tried to shoo him away. Bad kitty, bad. Mr. Zashi said not kitties while we were working. Izuku silently apologized to the girl and looked at her paper. She was working on the kanji alphabet, which was great. He pointed to the first one of his name. The girl looked confused. She wrote down the kanji and looked back up to Izuku. Izuku pointed to the next one, and the process repeated until she had spelt his name. He tapped the table twice, and Eri looked between him and the letters, confused. She didn't write them all in a line, and some of the page was filled out, but Izuku hoped the message got across. The front door opened and closed gently, and a very tired-looking Mr. Yamada walked in and sat down, gently picking up the cat and putting him down on the ground. The man looked down at the paper and saw what Eri had written. Very good. Let's keep going, kiddo. Eri giggled and nodded. Hazel helped me pick with which letters. The man smiled and rubbed the girl's head. Oh, well, let's try and find the kanji to his name. Okay, Mr. Zashi. Izuku thought this was really sweet, but come on! He worked hard to do that. He hid in the closet again, and totally didn't pout. This was harder than anticipated. Shota was scared. One of his kids was gone, without a trace. Zashi wanted to stop him before he left to go look again, to make the man rest from the large fight they had the day before, but he couldn't. He had a kid to find. The mother of said kid was distraught, and All Might himself was worrying a lot. Shoulda didn't really understand All Might, but this case was enough to cause a great worry in the man, and even more in himself. Because Midoriya was his kid, his responsibility, and he had failed that kid so many times this year. And he was there with that kid when he had jumped in to defend his teammate against the incoming attack, got blasted by it and thrown into the fucking stratosphere, and then disappeared without a trace. Should have walked into the police station and straight to Sakachi, who was already at his desk with papers that he set in front of him. I need you to sign these, and I can let you interrogate the guys we caught. Shota sighed and relaxed a bit, sitting down to sign all the paperwork. Thank you, Sakachi. Anytime, buddy. Shota didn't notice how stiff the man was. Knowledge of a powerful secret within him, and worry for the future of said secret, quietly blistering within him. Woo! Okay. Yeah. So, God, went a lot better. I actually had a way better time with this chapter than I did yesterday. I think what kept happening yesterday is because I just recorded something before it. I think I just killed my voice and then speaking decided fuck you for episode 1 of this. Because, yeah, I actually was able to do multiple 2-minute plus things for this one with actually continuing. Holy shit, I was very proud of myself there. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. I'm just gonna make a comment about this chapter. This chapter is really fucking funny. Like, on multiple wavelengths to me, because Asuka is just having an existential crisis throughout the entire day. There's a reason why I just did a fucking face planting for the art. Originally, his tail was actually gonna curl over, but I decided, nah, I like this better. Just face plant and tail puffed out. Cause he ain't a happy cat. um, I got a lot better at speaking though. Who would have thought? Practice, I guess, does work. Also, can I just say, I love the fact that I forgot it's sushi, right? I love the fact sushi's a gray tabby. It's not specifically stated, but not fan art, the official art for this fic does actually have sushi. Sushi is a gray tabby, which I feel like people forget there are more than just orange tabbies. So I was very excited. My cat nerd self was very happy. Anyway, that's enough rambling from me. Time to end this.